TWIN BUSCH, Germany. Your competent partner for lifting platforms and vehicle garage equipment with 11 branches in 7 countries.
Hello, today we will show you how to properly assemble the TW236M and the TW242M from TWIN BUSCH. Before you start assembly, you should think about the optimal position of your TWIN BUSCH lift. First, think about which side you want to place the main column with the control box and the motor unit. You regularly need space for switching on this side. The electrical connection also comes from this side, which you can optimally lead upwards towards the ceiling. When placing the sides, the desired direction in which you later want to drive vehicles onto the lift does not play a role, since this depends on the later assembly of the long and short support arm pairs. You can also swap the support arms later at any time to change the direction of travel. It is important to plan enough space in front of and behind the lift. From our website, you can call up many products as an AR view and view them directly in the room. Or use our 3D room planner on the website to plan the position in advance. Here you can specify the basic dimensions of your workshop and set up various lifts on a trial basis. Your TW236M or TW242M will be delivered in 2 packages. The upper package contains the hydraulic unit with the instructions, and the lower one contains the columns and all the remaining parts. You will also need 10 liters of hydraulic oil for commissioning. As a consumable product, these are not automatically included in the scope of delivery. Let's start by unpacking the lift. First, remove the upper package that contains the hydraulic unit. Take the operating instructions out of this package. Read the instructions carefully. Now, remove the hydraulic unit from the package and put it aside. Continue with the second package. Attention! When removing the inner packaging, the drive-over plate inserted on the side must be protected from falling out, preferably by a second person. Put the drive-over plate aside for now. You will only need it again when it comes to aligning the columns. The big package continues. The upper column is the main column, to which the motor unit and the control box will later be attached. The package with the small parts is located between the columns. Open the package with the small parts and check that they are complete using the packing list. Included are the heavy-duty anchors, the parts for the unlocking mechanism, the oil hoses, other parts for the unlocking, such as support arm bolts and support arm accessories. Remove the first 2 support arms from the main column and put them aside. Next, secure and unload the top column at its center of gravity. We use a motor crane to slightly lift the column at its center of gravity. Now the top of the upper column can be removed from the transport frame. Then loosen the retaining screws of the upper column on the foot side. Make sure that the load of the column is safely transferred to the motor crane and that the column does not slip. It is best to have a second person secure the motor crane and column while it is being unscrewed. Release the upper column from the transport frame. The main column can then be moved as close as possible to its future location. Set up the column and roughly align the column. Here we see the holes for mounting the release and the hydraulic unit. We continue at the assistance column. Remove the control unit, the stickers with the warnings, and the remaining 2 support arms. Now lift the second column in the same way as the first column and move it to its future location. Remove the transport frame completely. Move the second column to the intended position and also roughly align the column first. Now the crossing plate comes into play as a measure of the distance. Insert the drive-over plate between the columns. To do this, lift the lifting carriages into the first locking position in order to better access the recesses. Align the columns exactly with each other using the drive-over plate. The drive-over plate should still have a slight amount of play at the end so that it can still be easily removed after the columns have been anchored. We also recommend checking the rotation of the columns relative to each other with a thread. The thread should rest lightly on both columns. Here is the process again in top view. Alignment is only done by rotating the column around its own axis. If the position, distance, and alignment of the columns are correct, they are anchored in the ground. We will now show you an example of how to anchor the ground with heavy-duty anchors on a 2-post lift. Be sure to pay attention to the required depth of the drill hole and the thickness of the concrete. If the heavy-duty anchor is not properly sunk into the concrete, or if the concrete does not meet the technical specifications, the stability of the lift may be impaired. Please refer to the operating instructions for the exact technical specifications. The lift does not have to be moved to set the heavy-duty anchors. Drill vertically and note the required depth of the drill hole. Clean the drill holes carefully, for example, by blowing them out with compressed air. Drive in the heavy-duty anchor carefully and straight with the help of a sledgehammer. Before tightening the nuts, the columns must be checked for vertical alignment. If necessary, support the columns on the heavy-duty anchors with the included shims. When the columns are aligned, tighten the nuts with a torque wrench to the torque required according to the instructions. After the lift has been anchored, the drive-over plate is removed again. Now you can take the steel cables out of the columns and lay them out according to the diagram. A steel cable leads from the lifting carriage upwards over the cable pulley on both sides. From there, all the way down to the deflection pulley, and from there, over to the opposite column. Here is the second side again. The cables are now connected by the two lifting carriages and form a circuit that forces the carriages to run synchronously. In order to insert the cables into the rollers, you must turn the rollers so that the cutouts on the rollers point towards the steel plate. To thread the steel cables, remove the pre-assembled nuts from the threaded rod. The steel cables are then attached to the lifting carriage with the two nuts. For the first one, it is sufficient if only one nut is screwed on. The second nut then becomes important when tensioning the ropes. Repeat the process with the second steel cable on the other side. After the ropes have been laid, we can now also lay the long hydraulic hose. Place the long hydraulic hose between the two columns and screw it on. Pay particular attention. These should be screwed tightly together. When tightening the hydraulic connection, hold the hose in position with a second open-end wrench. Do the same thing with the other end of the hose. The next step is to install the release lever. First, screw the lever holder onto the column. Make sure that all screws are tightened well. Now attach the lever roller with the screw, washers, and nut. The lever pulley must be installed so that the pocket for the end of the rope is at the bottom. Now thread the release cable from the inside out onto the lever roller. form a small loop and secure the loop with a press sleeve. Then screw the cable onto the pulley. After the release cable has been attached, the cover can be put on. Screw the release lever onto the lever roller. Laying the release cable is a little more complicated. We will now guide you step by step through installing the cable. Let's start with an overview of the complete cable guide. The unlocking cable leads from the pull lever vertically downwards in the column first. Then it leads around the roller on the column wall and from there all the way up to the top of the column. Here the cable is then guided over a roller directly over the lifting carriage. The cable leads from above into the lifting carriage and passes through the unlocking mechanism there. The cable is then guided to the other column via a pulley. A pulley guides the cable towards the top of the column. On the way to the top of the column, the cable then passes through the unlocking mechanism of the second column. By pulling the lever, after the catch has been released, the cable can be tensioned and the platform can be unlocked on both sides at the same time. It starts on the main lift. To lay the release cable, open the maintenance opening. Here we can see the unlocking mechanism of the main lift. Now let's move on to the first step. As shown in the animation, the cable is first guided downwards directly along the wall, past the lifting carriage. When you reach the bottom, the cable is threaded through the pulley on the column wall. On the left side, the cable comes from the lever, and on the right side, the cable is then led up the wall again. The cable is guided past the lifting carriage again, all the way up to the top of the column. A practical tip that has proven useful is to pull the cable upwards past the lifting carriage using a folding rule. Once at the top, the unlocking cable is then deflected via a roller away from the wall and over the lifting carriage. Then we use the ruler again to guide the cable through the opening in the carriage to the service opening. As shown here, the cable should now run downwards through the opening in the carriage. The cable is then threaded onto the left side of the lower pulley. Lift the lifting carriage to the next higher position to reach the lower level. Then put the lifting carriage down again. To set down, lift the carriage slightly, pull the release cable and lower it. Then lay the release cable on the right side of the upper roller. The cable is guided downwards and redirected to the other column at ground level. To protect the cable, we next pass it through the plastic tube provided. Then we continue to the assistance side. The cable runs over a roller at floor level and is guided upwards through the lifting carriage. Open the service opening on the assistance side and insert the cable into the cuts. Here, we have also raised the carriage by a rest position to reach the lower part of the lifting carriage. Lower the lifting carriage. By carefully pulling back and pushing the cable again, it can then be guided into the deflection pulley. The cable must then be guided from the right side of the lower pulley over the left side of the upper pulley. To do this, push the end of the cable past the pulley to the left and catch the end when it comes back down. From here, it goes up again with the ruler trick. The cable should now run over the pulleys as shown here. Now let's move on to the final step of the release cable. The cable is attached to the top of the assistance column. Assemble the hook provided and use the cable to form a loop that you can hang. You can use the connecting element to adjust the optimal cable length for unlocking later. Next, we assemble the hydraulic unit. The screws required for assembly are included in the box for the small parts. Insert a screw with a spacer, snap ring and nut on the top of the motor unit on the right and left. Now the motor block can be hung on the main column. Tighten the nuts lightly. Add the other two screws with spacers and snap rings at the bottom. Finally, tighten the screws with open-end wrenches. Now the short hydraulic hose is installed. Tighten the connection for the hydraulic hose on the hydraulic unit. Attach the hydraulic hose to the hydraulic connection. Tighten the hydraulic hose firmly with an open-end wrench. Connect the hydraulic hose to the hydraulic system at the foot of the column. Attach the hydraulic hose to the column using the cover provided. Open the control box and remove the limit switch and the associated screws. Now the limit switch is installed. Guide the limit switch cable through the cable duct provided. Mount the limit switch at the top of the main column as shown here. The switch is screwed on at an angle with 2 screws. At the end, guide the cable through the opening in the column. Please note that the following electrical installation may only be carried out by a qualified electrician. The next step is to install the switch box. Screw the control box onto the main column. Connect the motor unit to the control box. To do this, screw out the grommet to feed the cable through. Now, screw the cap back on. Wire the motor cable as described in the instructions. Connect the limit switch cable. The limit switch cable is provided with a cable tie and stored in the control unit. Now close the control box. Now the oil tank can be filled with up to 10 liters of hydraulic oil. Fill the oil no more than up to the maximum mark. Now you can cover the cable and the hydraulic hose with the drive-over plate. Make sure that neither the cable nor the hydraulic hose are pinched by the drive-over plate. There is an extra slot on one side for the unlocking cable. Therefore, pay attention to the correct direction in which you insert the drive-over plate. To assemble the support arms, prepare 2 support arm bolts and the circlips for the first side. We need a long and a short support arm on each side. The short support arms go on the side, where the heavier part of the vehicle will later be located. This is usually the vehicle engine end. The long support arms then lift the lighter end of the vehicle. As already mentioned, the support arms can be replaced at any time later. Now insert the first arm and mount it with a support arm. Also mount the second arm as shown. Secure the support arm bolts with the circlips. Insert the turntables. Make sure the anti-twist protection is correctly seated. Mount the foot guards to the support arms. Make sure that the brackets are attached so that the screws are at the top. Attach the door protectors. Now close the maintenance openings. The cable tension is crucial for good synchronization. Use a size 24 open-end wrench to loosen the nuts. We use entire iron for tensioning. Start with the assistance column, which is opposite the main column with the control box and motor unit. This side usually only needs to receive basic tension once. All further adjustments are made on the main column with the control unit. Since the cables are connected to each other, Tensioning the main side now automatically leads to tensioning on the assistant side. Move the lift up and listen for the safety catches clicking. The side with the hydraulic pump should click first, then the opposite side. Before tensioning, remember to lower the carriage into the next notch using the lock button. When the catches click at the same time, the optimal cable tension has been reached. Now take the open-end wrench again and lock the nuts on both sides. This completes the adjustment of the cable tension. Connect the lift to the power and turn on the main switch. Now raise the lift for the first time. In order to bleed the hydraulic pistons, the lift is now moved up and down again several times. This completes the assembly of your TW236M or TW242M.
Visit us in one of our branches. With 11 branches in 7 countries, also in your area. We offer advice and product demonstrations in our showrooms, as well as sales and technical service on site with our service fleet. Warehouse logistics with a large stock of products available for immediate delivery. Spare parts and repair service. Assembly videos with step-by-step instructions, as well as constant new and further developments of our products. Everything from a single source, from lifts to tire changers and tire balancers. Awarded 9 times as the best brand. Twin Busch, your competent automotive garage supplier.